What are the key reasons behind the failure of IT project management?
There's a broken joint between in business where IT does the build, they do the UAT, business says fine, and then what? So what I realized that there is a need for there to be sort of a shared understanding between the IT team and the business to say, look, we're handing this off. IT can make sure it's packaged and everything works, but that last mile of usage where the real value happens, right? What I call adoption requirements in the book really need to be owned by someone in the business and then driven home to make sure that the full value is the benefits are realized.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life and IT Project Management, where we take you on journeys connecting life and IT project management. I am your ever learning host, Justus Ayala. Today, we are joined by top tier, if I might say, a top tier IT project manager whose publications bridge rigorous research with practical applications, making his work highly valuable for solving problems with project delivery. Now, he's a published author, he's a speaker, he's a manager in the implementation trenches of project and program management, contributing to the efforts, like many of us, to reduce the losses due to unclear done or adoption requirements. Please welcome David Luria. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that introduction. Wow, I sound like a big deal with that intro. I love it. Thank you.
You are.
I'm a
All
big
right.
deal. There you go.
All right. Our topic today is the failure of IT project management and what to do differently, specifically for 2025. David did author a book titled The Failure of IT Project Management. Now, we want to understand what changes or what improves in 2025. So, I'll go straight into the questions. The first question will be, what are the key reasons behind the failure of IT project management? Let me keep it brief. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the book really came about as a result of about 20 years of working on IT projects and noticing that while the technical work often goes well, not always, but often goes fine, at the end of the day, there would be projects where we would spend months, in some cases more than a year, um, and then the software would never get used, right? And I kept thinking, gosh, that the most expensive software is the one that never gets used or gets built twice, God forbid, right? And so I thought, well, what is it about that? And the more I looked into it, the more I realized there's a broken joint between in business, right? Where IT does the build, they do the UAT, business says fine, and then what, right? Because there's a difference between something being sort of in prod and in use, right? And so what I realized that there's a need for there to be sort of a shared understanding between the IT team and the business to say, look, we're handing this off. IT can make sure it's packaged and everything works, but that last mile of usage where the real value happens, right? What I call adoption requirements in the book. There's a handful of adoption requirements really need to be owned by someone in the business, right? And then driven home to make sure that the full value is the benefits are realized.
Fantastic. So these shared understanding captured within what constitutes that adoption, the set of adoption requirements, the shared understanding basically leads to my next question. Now, the next question we'll get into failure examples, but let's first segue into, is this a process problem? Because by the time you speak to agile and non-agile process frameworks by which this can be managed, is this, in your own perspective, is this a process problem or a people problem?
Well, it's both. It's really an ownership gap, right? Because if you talk to IT leaders, they're going to own the procurement, the understanding of the technical, non-technical requirements, the integration requirements, the features, the build, and the delivery, right to the doorstep, right?
Mhm.
What they're not going to sign off on is be held accountable to is the usage of the software. does it actually get used, right?
Right.
Are the benefits being achieved, right? And the business, frankly, is often too busy to measure it, right? So
Mhm.
there's this ownership gap between software that gets built versus benefits being realized. And so it's a bit of a process problem, but it can be, I think, fairly easily addressed by having someone on the business side, a general manager like me, who is responsible for collating the understanding of the users, the key users, not every single use case, but those key use cases that will make sure that it gets used. I'll give you one example. There was one program that I worked on where it was a big 3-year, tens of millions of dollar project. And prior to go live, a set of users were going to have to move all of their models from one repository to another, one repository in one location to the new repository. And so they needed to be able to get into the software months ahead of time because these are complex financial models. And without the practice of using the software, making sure all the nuts and bolts of everything is working and everything's wired together, because these are highly technical users, they were going to fail. Right? You couldn't go live and then say, oh, okay, well now you'll be back up and running in 3 months. No, it doesn't work like that. So that's a small example where you've got to make sure that there are users who really understand what I call the ready, willing, and able, right? They're ready, willing, and able to do their job on day one, right? They're ready because they understand the why of it, right? The why the system is being, they're willing because they understand how it impacts their jobs, right, down to a certain level of detail, and they're able because the system is ready, right? All the components of readiness are done. It's been tested, support's in place, everything is, they've been trained if necessary. So that little moniker of ready, willing, and able plays a big role throughout the book, because it's this idea that it's really a shared ownership, but it's a handoff from IT to the business.
Mhm. Fantastic. So you have, in responding, you have already spoken to an example of a situation where there was failure. And from what you've also said, it does basically emphasize or clarify that this is really process agnostic, if I might say.
That's right.
They just have to be ready, willing, and able, regardless of whatever process has been adopted. So that takes me to the next question. How will these challenges intensify in 2025? How do you see it intensifying?
Well, yeah, no, that's a good question. I think, I don't know that there's anything particularly magic about 2025 other than the trend that I've seen in my career over the last couple dozen years has been platforms, right? Platforms have become the sort of end all be all to abstract people away from the data and be able to do configuration and move things pretty quickly. So that trend is not slowing. I think it will accelerate, particularly as we get into AI, right? And the AI piece is going to be quite ugly for a time because it's still forming. I don't think there are any very clear enterprise, compelling enterprise uses that I've seen with project management. There's some what I've heard called toy apps, right? You know,
Mm.
rewrite this in the style of John Bon Jovi lyrics. Like, okay, not gonna be very helpful at work, but um, so, so I think as AI starts to inculcate more and more into platforms, on the surface, its intention is to make people's lives easier. That's not going to happen at first, right? We all know from the J curve, right, the change curve, that we go up to the peak of inflated expectations first, then you go down to the trough of despair, and then gradually you
Mhm.
go up to the slope of enlightenment, right? I think that's what Gartner calls it. So the goal with change management is to make, you're not going to change that, but you can change the shape of it. Maybe it doesn't go down quite as deep, right?
Super, yeah.
Um, so in the beginning, it's going to be painful, and as we get into adopting some of these tools and really the discovery and research, which is the phase that we're in now, it's going to be incumbent on project managers who are often an extension of IT. If they're not embedded with IT, they may be part of a change organization within a group, but they're really the curators of change, right? They're
Mhm.
really the ones who are the champions of change and who understand change, because the people who are in the business, they're running the business, right? It's a sort of run the bank versus change the bank metaphor, as I've heard it described. And so the folks on the business side, they have to be led, they have to be taught, and they're going to have to be taught how to think in these terms and be told, listen, we need a crack analyst on your side of the business who really understands all the components of readiness, right? Understands the
Yes.
process, understands the roles, and different people play different roles in a process. And there's sort of a handoff effect, as you go throughout the process and it gets handed off from one person to another. And use cases is often like that. So it's going to become more complicated in that even though AI is not ready, the expectations, are already inflating and getting worse. So the expectation for greater productivity is there. The expectation always in business is that, you do more with less. So I think it's going to require a level of thoughtfulness, I guess, on the part of the project managers or anyone who's running a project to really take into account is, do we know what done looks like? Or what does done look like? Done is often, okay, you signed off on these features or these BIs or whatever. But done means that someone is actually using it and maybe they're training others, maybe they're a super evangelist. They're moving it forward.
Awesome. So from your response, what I do get in summary, and please correct me if I'm wrong, what I do get in summary is that because of the fact that leaders will cautiously adopt AI and they will not expect magic in the near term, they should also understand that AI, of course, will not solve the ready, willing, able puzzle, and therefore they still need humans, project managers on the business side who are able to steer that effectively, right?
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I will just summarize that by saying luck favors the prepared, right? These tools that are coming out. That's not my phrase. That's George Will or somebody, I don't remember.
Yeah,
Um,
someone.
but but these tools are able to do some extraordinary things, right?
Mhm.
And so here's what I envision doing next year for 2025 with some of these tools, Copilot and ChatGPT and Claude and these things. I envision taking a whole bunch of documents and artifacts, PowerPoint, PDFs, whatever, project
Mhm.
artifacts, putting them into the tool and then saying, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with you. You're now my super analyst, right? And I'm going to ask you a few questions. What does good look like for an analyst in this role who is trying to achieve these ends? And I use this ChatGPT thing all the time now, and the voice mode is unbelievable, right? It's
Mhm.
it's it's like it's like talking to a buddy.
Right, right.
And so if you can upload the documents and you can have a conversation through clever prompt engineering and say, okay, now I'm going to put you in the role of the implementation manager. Interview me, ChatGPT, you interview me and ask me what does good look like if in this role when we're implementing the system, right? So it's the sort of toy app aspect of ChatGPT, the novelty, the circus, barking is not what we're talking about. We're talking about what I've heard described as eventually will become these agent systems, these agentic systems, right,
Yes,
that will actually
yes.
do something for you. We're a long way from that. Right now, I think it's just going to be productivity gains. I think it's going to be a matter
Mhm.
of um, let me shave off a minute or two, maybe 5 minutes of my day, right? And
Mhm.
if you've got a company with 10,000 employees and they're saving 2 to 5 minutes a day
That's something.
over a year, that ends up being real money, right? So
Mhm.
I think there are going to be productivity gains. And I think the people who are going to win are the ones who are curious, the ones who are naturally inquisitive and are willing to try something and well that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. Oh, well, that was interesting, right? And just
Mhm.
keep.
Awesome. Great. So that leads me to the next, and you did touch on this. So that leads me to the last question for the day.
Mhm.
Now, what key? So for the IT project manager in steering projects going forward, um, outside technical skills. Now, how do they? What key competencies do you? And they cannot. push it to the BA. So they
Yeah.
shouldn't say they
Yeah.
should. This is the requirements are for the, no, 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 no. They're not for the BA BSA. No, no. For
Yeah.
them specifically, how will they develop, or how should they develop change muscles to manage transition requirements going forward?
Yeah, good question. I guess I would summarize it in one word, and that is curiosity. The
Mm-hmm.
best project managers have two things. One, they have a deep pool of knowledge about the area that they're working in, right? They have a deep bench. And two, they're curious, right? They ask questions. They seek perspective rather than go in with, well, I have all the answers. I may have some answers, but I'm actually curious about, different people's perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
being curious and being inquisitive and being good at asking open-ended questions that elicit maybe some nuggets of things you didn't think of in terms of an understanding of a process, in terms of really thinking through what did we miss here and what does good look like? That's one question I often will ask is, tell me what good looks like for this individual
Yeah.
in this part of the using this part of the system. What's the pain, right? We're trying to solve that pain problem. What's the pain that's going to go away, and how will we know when it's gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being really curious to ask questions around pain, and because then you then become an advocate for that person to say, I get that you're in pain and this is going to help you, and let's get there together. Nobody
Yes.
has all the answers, and every project is different and unique. I think that's why a lot of people certainly I enjoy doing project management work, because everything is unique and you get to
Mm-hmm.
work with interesting people, you get to work with smart people, and you get to solve problems.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for the responses. And I believe that so many will benefit from it. The beautiful thing about the online marketplace, the online market generally, is that records and fantastic conversations like this can stay for so long, right?
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, David, how can the audience best reach you? For those who want to reach you for um, reasons that are very, very meaningful. How can they reach out to you, and what should they look out from you coming shortly?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is the best way to get a hold of me. So just go to
Mhm,
LinkedIn, David Luria, Luria.
mhm.
I think I'm the only one on there.
Okay.
um, And I will be having a promotion for my book, The Failure of IT Project Management: Why It's Broken and How to Fix It, on Amazon, starting next week, and it's going to run for about 7 days. And I'm gonna reduce the price by 50%, just
Wow.
just to help out any of your podcast listeners.
Wow. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I did note that immediately so that I do what I can to speedily have this out of the door.
All right. There you go.
All right. So in conclusion, if you are an aspiring project manager, you don't want to start out with as much failures as those before you. If you are an experienced project manager, you want to be reminded that bridging between stakeholders and ensuring that the ready, willing, and able questions are asked and answered. If you are a program or portfolio manager, from a governance and financial tracking standpoint, you want to have more successes than failures, of course, as you validate the relevance of your PMO. So, for these individuals who are in the audience, who are listening to this, what has been shared, I hope it has been very valuable to you. And if it has, if you've learned something, please like, share, and don't forget to click the subscribe and bell notification button if you wish to continue to get great content connecting life and IT project management. Just a reminder, you did remember what David said regarding getting his book. Please head to Amazon as quickly as possible. All right, so until our next show, remember, every man is the architect of his fortunes. Thank you.
Thank you.